Welcome, everybody. It's the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. Follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. I'm joined by Pat Fitzmaurice. Follow him at Fitz_FF on the Twitter. And today we are here to talk about Dynasty wide receiver rankings in the early playoffs, offseason, whatever you want to call it here. But Fitz, wide receivers, extremely deep, with a giant class coming in. So it's becoming an arms race at wide receiver. It's not like, hey, there's a couple at the top that are separating. There are some really good wide receivers in the NFL right now, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper with this class coming in.
Some terrific young veterans, Boggs, and you and I were geeking out before we started recording this show on Prospect Talk, and this is one of the better wide receiver classes, I think, that we've seen come into the NFL in some years now. So add that to a pretty impressive collection of young talent already in place in the NFL, and it's an exciting time to invest in wide receivers, which, of course, a very critical position in dynasty formats.
You agree, right? It's becoming an arms race, right? You have to have three good ones, and you probably need a couple good ones on the bench just in case somebody gets hurt, because there are so many good ones, right?
Agreed. Yeah, you're not getting by with Rondale Moore in your starting lineup.
Right, exactly. That wide receiver 3 is less of a swing play, and a lot of flex positions are a wide receiver now because they're so much more reliable than the running backs. But let's get into it. Let's talk about it. And remember, as you guys know, all of our early 2024 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. From there, you can navigate to the dynasty rankings. It's super simple. So if you would like to follow along, go ahead and check that out. But let's start with the S tier, the star tier here. Number 1, Justin Jefferson. Number 2, CeeDee Lamb. Number 3, Jamar Chase. Number 4, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Fitzy, you and I actually do disagree with who the number 1 is. I say right now it's hard to not have CeeDee Lamb at the top after that impressive. It was really a historic type of fantasy season that he had. But Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I don't know if there's really a wrong answer here. All of these guys are absolute studs.
Yeah, there really isn't. And Boggs, like Lamb versus Jefferson to me is neck and neck. So I think maybe the reason why some people would give Lamb the edge for dynasty value is he has the quarterback in place right now, Dak Prescott, who's still, I would say, in his prime or maybe his late prime, whereas the quarterback situation is something the Vikings still have to puzzle out.
And availability, the best ability, CeeDee Lamb, the only one of this group to play all 17 games, right? Amon-Ra missed 1, Jefferson missed 7, Jamar missed 1 and played gimpy a lot this year. So health was a little bit of a factor in it here. None of these guys are facing any major injuries. But for me, CeeDee Lamb being the guy to stay on the field, also when we're splitting tiny hairs and saying this guy is in, this guy is out, that's another factor for me is, just recent, probably a little recency bias on that. I'll give that up, but great. All these guys are great. All of them belong in this tier. The question is, to me, Fitz, does anyone else belong in this tier? Because we don't have, 5 and 6, just spoiler alert, in the next tier are AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill. Do those guys belong in this tier, or is this top 4 really all you can put in this top tier?
I think you can consider A.J. Brown there because he has been, a premium producer in recent years, and he's only 26. There was some slippage in Jalen Hurts' passing productivity this year. That's maybe the reason I would keep him out. If Jalen Hurts had been able to replicate his 2022 season in 2023, I think A.J. Brown would be in this tier. But maybe that's the difference, just that I'm not feeling great about the season Hurts had as a passer. Tyreek, the issue with him, Boggs, he's 29. And remember last offseason, he maybe talked about playing 3 more years. Well, now we've got one of those seasons behind us. There's little doubt that he is going to produce like a rock star when he plays. But if we're only getting 2 more seasons of that, then can we put him in this tier?
Look, I think that, first of all, Tyreek's a bit of a wild card, right? Because he talks a lot. And I was watching our boy Trevor Sikkema on PFF, and they were talking about some of these contracts and stuff. I think his contract in 2025, his cap number is like $52 million. So he is gone, at least out of Miami at that point. But I don't know, keeps having a bunch of kids, may have to stick in the NFL a little bit longer to put them all through college here. So I don't know if we can really trust when guys say they're going to retire at 30. Okay, you say that, and that is a smart play. And I think my ranking is more, I am taking him at his word a little bit on that, because if I thought he's going to play 4 or 5 more years, I would absolutely have him in this tier. I'd probably have him second or third, to be honest with you. So it's just, he is tougher to rank because of the things that he has said, and he is the older gentleman of this next group, which, speaking of, let's just go ahead and head down to it here. Fitzy, the A tier, 5 through 10 would be AJ Brown at 5, Tyreek Hill at 6, Garrett Wilson at 7, Puka Nacua at 8, Chris Olave at 9, and Jalen Waddle at 10. Erickson had Tyreek low at 21. I'm sorry, Debro. Yeah, Debro had him at 21, not Erickson. Erickson had him at 9. Is that too far down the list for Debro?
Yeah, it is. I mean, even if like he took a blood oath to only play 2 more years, I would have him ranked higher than number 21. And Boggs, I'm more the long range guy in Dynasty, yes, and you're more the short window guy. But man, the short window, if it is in fact a short window for Tyreek Hill, it's a pretty glorious 2 years that you're going to get from him.
I mean, just talking points, him and CeeDee Lamb are the only ones over 300 points at the position. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think for sure he's at least a top 10 guy because of the difference that he makes. So, Debro, you've been called out. We still love you, but your ranking on Tyreek is wrong. Is there anyone here that you think is not getting enough respect? Or anyone that is Puka getting too much respect? I guess I'll ask that. You have him at 8. You're actually the second highest ranker on him out of the group of the 4 of us. Debro is 8 or 6, excuse me. I am 9, and Erickson is 12. So we all have him as a wide receiver 1 here. He did have an extensive injury history in college, though. Are we? I don't know. The year was so good, and even in the playoffs, he set the playoff rookie record for receiving yards. We've seen nothing but excellence. So I'm not trying to sit here and poke holes, but are we giving a little bit too much to Puka too quickly, or no, he set records, this is where he belongs? Because
of the elite company he is in, and when we're talking about the rookie productivity he has, we're comparing him to guys like Justin Jefferson and Randy Moss. And because he's in that company, I think he has to be in the top 10. And I know he did have kind of an alarming injury history in college, but the fact that he made it through an entire 17-game NFL season, didn't have any injury issues, and had a massive reception total and target share, I think based on that, we should probably be injury agnostic with him moving forward, and not thinking he's any sort of extraordinary injury risk. So for me, Boggs, this tier is pretty spot on. I mean, these guys are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in our ECR, and I've got these guys 5 through 10 in my own rankings. So I think it's an accurate tier.
I know that you have started rookie rankings and putting them in here. Any rookies in this tier this high? I mean, we can't put them up in the tippy top, the top 4 yet, but can you put them in the top 10? Either these Marvin Harrison, maybe Malik Neighbors. Do you think this is about where they would go?
I'll put Marvin Harrison in the S tier.
You would put him in the top 4.
Oh yeah.
So it would be 5.
Yeah, I think I'd put him ahead of Amon-Ra. So he is at least wide receiver 4 for me overall in Rookie Dynasty. Yeah.
He is an absolute stud. I think I'd put him at 5, though. Fair. Just because we haven't seen him in the NFL. That's all. He's going to be a stud. He absolutely is. So, but I think I would put him at 5. But, we'll see. What we end up with.
Would you put any of the other rookies in this tier? Like either Malik Neighbors?
I would put Malik Neighbors in here.
Would you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Rome would be close, but I don't know if I could get him ahead of like Waddle and Olave in those guys. So, but I would definitely put Malik in this tier. Malik is a difference maker for sure. I think Rome is too, but Rome had a lot of help. So I just want to see him do it. I mean, obviously LSU was great. Jane Daniels was awesome. He had Brian Thomas as well. So there was help from Malik as well. But I just think between those two guys, I'm siding with Malik. Before we move down here, I got to tell you guys about the perfect draft. Back to the tiers in a second. Let me ask you something. Can you draft the perfect 2023 team? Then you should enter the Perfect Draft Challenge at fantasypros.com/perfect draft. It's a 12-team, half PPR with best ball scoring, aim for the top of our leaderboards, and a chance to win a 5-year subscription to Fantasy Pros. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 years of Fantasy Pros for the top squad here. Go to fantasypros.com/perfect draft and start drafting now. But hurry, the contest closes February 1st. So make sure you get in there and do your perfect draft. It is more difficult than you think, but it is also fun to do. I don't know how much you've messed around with it, Fitzy, but it is a lot of fun to go in there and try to get the perfect draft going.
Yeah, I have, and I'm always capped at around 2,700 and something. Like I tinker around with it, and I just can't crack that 2,800 mark, Boggs. But I'm sure
it's coming.
I'm a slow-witted Irish kid, so I'm sure our subscribers can do a lot better than that.
Absolutely. So check it out. Let's go to the B tier, 11 through 20. We go start at Brandon Aiyuk, go down to DeVonta Smith, Michael Pittman, Metcalf, Moore, Collins, Rice, Higgins, Flowers, and Drake London. So let's talk about a couple outliers here that you and I have ranked fairly high compared to ECR. And Fitzy, you have DeVonta Smith at number 11. His ECR is 12, but you are high man among us all because I have him at 19. So does Erickson. Debro has him at 13. So you are the high guy. Give us the used car sales pitch on DeVonta Smith being a wide receiver 1 here.
Yeah, I mean, I just have no doubts about his NFL future and his productivity when I watch him play. He's just so smooth and, already one of the better route runners, I think, in the NFL. Almost 1,200 yards in 2022 and 95 catches, over 1,000 yards this year, 9 yards per target so far after 3 NFL seasons, which is pretty extraordinary, and 9.5 yards per target in 2023. He's just really good, and it doesn't bother me at all that he plays with A.J. Brown, and it just, I think he's got a bright future. A guy who's going to get his targets no matter who is there because he's just so good.
And this is the depth of this position, right? I just made you fight for a Heisman Trophy winner.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? This is the depth of wide receiver right now. There are so many good number ones. I'll tell you mine. I have DJ Moore at 10, and my case is that I don't know that we've seen DJ Moore play with a really good quarterback yet. He was mired in Carolina. He was stuck in Chicago with Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields had ups, but he had downs as well. So Caleb Williams coming in here, I think that's going to be the move. I know there's still debate within Bears camp of do we stick with, our guy Justin Fields, but I think the resetting the clock is a smarter thing. Not only, just in terms of the quarterback prospects, I would have Caleb Williams ahead of Justin Fields. So I think Caleb Williams is the closest thing coming out to Patrick Mahomes that we've seen since Patrick Mahomes has come in the league and set it on fire. So I am a Caleb Williams guy through and through here. I like Justin Fields. I want my Steelers to trade for Justin Fields so bad. And I don't think we will because we already ripped off the Bears last year. So maybe we burn that bridge, right? Giving them Chase Claypool for that second round pick and getting Joey Porter Jr., who's a, rookie defensive player of the year nominee. But I do think that Caleb Williams is better. I think his number 1 is going to have a ton of targets and a ton of yards. And him with DJ Moore, you get a guy that can extend the play. You saw glimpses of it with Justin Fields. I think it could be even better with Caleb Williams. So for me, with all of these guys in terms of skill kind of being close, they do different things, most of them here, but I am so excited to see what this team looks like with Caleb Williams and DJ Moore as a number one wide receiver. So that's why I'm a little bit higher on DJ Moore.
Yeah, you actually make me feel guilty, Boggs, for having DJ Moore only wide receiver 13, even though I'm pretty well ahead of Debro and Erickson on him.
And that's still ahead of his consensus, by the way, 15.
Because, and as much as I like Justin Fields, he has never averaged even 200 passing yards per game. And then there were all those seasons that DJ Moore was catching passes from Sam Darnold, Kyle Allen, I think Dusty Cam Newton for one of those years, I believe.
Right.
And yet this dude has had at least 1,100 receiving yards in 4 of the last 5 seasons. He's terrific.
I mean, who's more impressive? Maybe DeAndre Hopkins with like Tyler Yates and Matt Schaub, and I can't remember how far down it went with the bad Texan QBs, but it was bad. Imagine him there with CJ Stroud in his prime. That's what we could be getting with DJ Moore and Caleb Williams. Zay Flowers has a ranking of a wide receiver 1, down to a wide receiver 3 amongst us. So Fitzy, his ECR is 19. I got him as a wide receiver 3. Erickson has him as a wide receiver 1. You and Debro are on different ends of the spectrum of a wide receiver 2, 14 and 21. But there's just a lot of variance here for Zay Flowers. Is it an understandable variance to you?
It is, because I'm very perplexed about what sort of player he is after his rookie year. I don't think we have a good handle on it. I don't think we know what sort of target share he's going to command throughout his career. If he can be sort of, I don't know if he's ever going to be an alpha receiver, Boggs, but is he ever going to command enough targets to be like truly valuable, a 1,200, a 1,300 yard guy? I'm not sure yet. And like we saw some big play explosiveness for sure. Like he showed us that, but he just never really gave us consistent productivity in his rookie year, which is a little concerning considering that Mark Andrews was out for a lot of the year and Zay Flowers still wasn't totally popping.
Right. And this is a run first offense, which had an immense amount of injuries to the backfield, right, Fitzy? And I don't know if we bring Derrick Henry and put him in Baltimore, which thank God Wormley's not on the show today. By the way, we didn't fire him. He's on vacation, so he's doing great. But if they add Derrick Henry, they're going to run the ball 50 times a game. It's going to be so much Derrick Henry and Mitchell and Lamar running the ball. And then Mark Andrews is still probably your number 1 target. Zay is easily your 2. Maybe it's 1A, 1B between them, right? Maybe Zay takes over. Maybe Mark is more affected by this injury going into next year, right? We do have to take that into consideration at least. So maybe he is a wide receiver 1, but he's still the wide receiver 1 on a team that is a run first offense. So that is why it's not the skill at all with Zay for me. It's about the opportunity and the potential for production. I just think is lower than a lot of these other guys. So,
yeah, we like the talent. He's just a hard guy to project.
We're all a little bit low on DK Metcalf, which surprised me because I feel like I'm a DK Metcalf guy, but his ECR is 14. You and I, Fitz, have him at 16, Debro at 19, Erickson at 18. Is this just built in for variance, or do you think we actually are low on Metcalf in opinion as well?
He's going from being a young player to being a player who's in the prime of his career. So, it's not like his prime is still ahead of him. I think he's now in his prime. And he's going to have Jaxon Smith-Njigba competing with him for targets for the long haul. I don't know what they do with Tyler Lockett, but Lockett is still under contract.
For a little bit, too. And he's not like a crazy cap hit either, I don't think. I think that's a pretty good deal they have with him. And they still have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Right.
And they don't have a star quarterback. Geno's okay, but he's not a star. So I don't know if we can count on DK Metcalf for, and as it is, DK isn't really a 100-catch guy anyway.
He's touchdown dependent.
And he's impactful. He's going to score a lot of touchdowns. He's going to make some big plays. He's probably going to get, have 1,000-yard seasons from now through the end of his career. But will he have the 1,500-yard? I just don't think he has the sort of upside that, you get from Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's like he's obviously a very valuable dynasty commodity. He's just not one of the most valuable dynasty receivers.
He's just a tier down to us. Fitz, you're a little bit lower on Brandon Aiyuk, whose ECR is 11. You and I both have him as a wide receiver 2. Debro and Erickson have him as a wide receiver 1. Erickson has him at 6, so very high on him. And Rashee Rice, you're a little bit lower too. You have him at 20. The rest of us have him between 12, 14, 17, stuff like that. So just a little nitpicky on those guys.
I think so. I mean, I think Aiyuk is an amazing all-around player. Like, he does it all. He blocks. He's a good route runner. He's like, just physical after the catch. Pretty much everything. But this year, despite having a 1,300-yard season, he only averaged 6.6 targets per game. Like, he was not really an alpha receiver. It was because he was so freakishly efficient. 12.8 yards per target this year. Like, that is just insane. I don't think we're going to get year-to-year carryover with that sort of yards per target number. I think we can always expect Brandon Aiyuk to be above average in that regard. But, last year, 1,000-yard season, 6.7 targets per game. So if he levels out there, and, he probably will in the near term because they've still got Debo and Kittle on that team, you just have to wonder about the upside and whether he can be a true alpha receiver. No qualms with the player whatsoever. He's terrific. And then with Rashee Rice, Boggs, what I wrestle with is what happens if, assuming Travis Kelce doesn't retire along with his brother to conquer the sports media world. If Travis Kelce comes back and the Chiefs do what they should do, which is draft someone like, Xavier Worthy or Keon Coleman at the end of the first round, and all of a sudden maybe Rashee Rice is like number 3 in the target pecking order there.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to complain about the sort of game Rashee Rice has, where he is a short area receiver. I think he averaged 4.8 yards for his average depth of target this year. That's fine. I mean, that can work. We've seen it with Debo Samuel.
5.2. Yeah.
5.2. Okay. Like, extraordinary with the ball in his hands. He's just amazing.
The lowest by far of the guys that we have talked about.
Yeah.
JSN was 6.4, but that's still, 1.2 yards more downfield, which is crazy. The only other couple guys under double digits, Jamar was 9, Amon-Ra was 8, Puka was 9, Pittman was 8. Everybody else over 10.
And Debo has shown that you can do that and make it work and still be really productive. Or Jalen Waddle, I think his first year had a really low average depth of target and was still wildly productive. But all of a sudden, if you add another alpha receiver and you're not just competing with Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Justin Watson, like, you've got a real downfield receiver who can beat cornerbacks and get open and let Patrick Mahomes really air out the arm, a la Tyreek Hill. They're not going to find another Tyreek, but they're going to find someone better than Justin Watson and Marquez Valdez-Scantling to stretch the field in 2024, whether it's in the draft or free agency.
So the only thing that I'll push back on, because you're absolutely, all of that is 100% correct, right? The only thing that I'll push back on is that I don't think they're going to take a guy like that again, because Mahomes is eating up so much of the cap. They tried to make this work by spending money on MVS, by drafting Sky Moore, and then Rashee Rice was a little bit of a later pick that worked for them. So I think that they're going to spend those draft picks on other positions and say, look, we can get some wide receivers off the scrap heap because it's worked for us. So,
it's such a deep class that even if they don't do that in the first round, they can get a good guy in the second or third round.
You could get a second or third round value in the third or fourth round this year. It's really, the class is so deep. You're 100% correct. All right, let's go down to the C class here. As you guys can see, if you're watching on YouTube, it's Jaxon Smith-Njigba at 21, down to Cooper Kupp at 29. I've got a couple low guys in this group here, Fitzy, and one, I was really surprised at how low I was compared to everybody else. One is JSN, and I'm actually higher than ECR on him, just between Debro and Erickson and Fitz. I'm the low man there. I got him at 20. Fitz, you got him at 14. Debro and Erickson have him at 11. And for me, this is exactly what you talked about before, is the fact that we don't know who the quarterback is going to be there long-term. Maybe it's Geno, but they're getting a new head coach, and head coaches make changes. So maybe they bring in somebody else. Maybe they go to Drew Lock if Geno struggles in the new system. I don't know what's happening there. Lockett is still there. The running backs are both really good to the point where you probably should not be ignoring giving these guys 40 touches between both of them, right? 20 for Walker, maybe 20 for Charbonnet. Like, that is a winning formula if you're not playing the Niners. You know what I mean? If you're playing a run defense that's kind of soft, you should be running the ball with those two monsters. So I'm a little lower, but I'm still higher than ECR. Y'all are just crazy, I think. I personally, that's my belief, is you and especially Debro and Erickson are a little too crazy high on him. That's all.
So I believe in the talent, and he's still very young. And basically, I've got my little horse blinders on, Boggs, and that's kind of all I'm looking at. I'm not really looking at who his quarterback is, what the target competition is like, because he has such a long career runway.
That's true.
Eventually, I just think he's going to start cranking out 1,000-yard seasons, maybe when the circumstances are a little different. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if you're in win now mode with your dynasty team, he's a guy you're looking to trade because you could get a fortune for him from a rebuilding team. But if I'm a rebuilding team, he's a cornerstone of my rebuild.
So the one that I think really is going to lead to some discussion here is the fact that I have Tank Dell at 30 and his ECR is 23. You have him at 22. You're closest to me out of everybody else. Debro has him at 16. Erickson has him at 13. Look, I feel like I was higher than anybody else on Tank Dell coming into the NFL. I was definitely a Tank Dell guy, and he was amazing this season for Houston. But he missed 6 games, and he's a smaller guy, and Nico Collins could definitely be an alpha if that's the way they want to go. He's great. We proved to I think the league and to himself and to everyone, he is an NFL wide receiver, because there were questions about his size coming in. You know, there are questions about Zay Flowers' size coming in, and he was way bigger than Tank Dell. So I think those questions are answered, but I still have a question about, is this guy at this size going to be able to sustain and make a long-term career in the NFL, which is why I have him more as a wide receiver 3 than a wide receiver 2. Your thoughts on Tank Dell, Fitzy?
Understand your trepidation, Boggs. I'm a bit of a sizist myself. At least the 6 games, it wasn't like a litany of injuries that kept him out at various times. It was one injury where, for some reason, Bobby Slowick has him blocking for like a goal line dive. I don't understand what that was all about. That was a little strange. Hopefully,
George Pickens saw it. Remember when he took that goal line block off? Oh,
and he even talked about it. Like, he even talked about Tank Dell getting hurt on that play. So I don't understand that. Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of convinced by what I saw out of Tank Dell. He is almost an impossible wide receiver to cover. Like, it is like trying to cover Mercury, the element. Like, you just can't do it. Like, you move there, he moves there, and he's just always ahead of you. So
that phone booth speed, that 3-cone.
Yes.
Ooh, he is so good. He's fun to watch too. I love him. Local guy here in Houston as well, and made it to his local team. He's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Like I said, mine is the size and the sustainability at that size. Maybe he bulks up, but if he bulks up, does he lose the speed? So that's like, there's just a couple questions. Sure. That's all. That's why I have him more as a wide receiver 3, because there's so many good wide receivers here. Fitz, you have 2 guys that you have polarizing ranks on here that I want to speak about as well. You've got Addison as a wide receiver 1. You're the low man on Cooper Kupp at 42. You have him. I don't know if you've updated, but for Addison, you're the only one to have him as a wide receiver 1. Now, just like whoever we were talking about in the, who was it we were talking about in the other one, the tier? I think maybe it was DeVonta Smith, but JSN. Yeah. Okay. I have him as a low-end wide receiver 2. Erickson has him as a high-end wide receiver 2. And Debro has him as a wide receiver 3. So you have him as a 1. Sell us on Jordan Addison as a 1 here.
Yeah, so I have Jordan Addison ranked wide receiver 12 overall, and Erickson is kind of with me. He's got him at wide receiver 14. Again, another instance, Boggs, where I have my horse blinders on, and I'm ignoring the fact that the Vikings are very unsettled at the quarterback situation, because I don't know if they're going to re-sign Kirk Cousins, who's a free agent, and certainly Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins are not the answer. And they also have Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson, who command their share of targets. What I saw was a guy, Jordan Addison, who scored 10 touchdowns as a rookie, who had 70 catches for 911 yards, despite sharing a field with Justin Jefferson for a good portion of the season. Obviously, Jefferson missed some time, which helped Addison's totals a bit. Like the productivity naturally increased when Jefferson
becoming
was hurt.
a wide receiver 1. Yeah,
he's just really good, Boggs, and I mean, we know it because he made Kenny Pickett a first-round draft choice. There's no way the Steelers are saddled with Kenny Pickett if not for Jordan Addison making him look so good. Like, Addison is just one hell of a wide receiver, and I think he has an incredibly bright future, and I'd absolutely be thrilled to have him on any of my dynasty rosters, which I don't at the moment. Somehow that is a void for me. I don't have Jordan Addison anywhere, and I regret it.
You were angling for, you still have JSN. Do you still have JSN ahead of him? Or no, you have JSN at 14 then, huh?
Yeah, I've Addison a little higher, actually. Like I was.
But I think weren't you higher on JSN coming in?
I was.
So I think you probably have more JSN, and we were both trying to get every share of Bijan that we could possibly get in the most recent class.
Yeah,
so.
and you asked about Cooper Kupp. I mean, he just can't stay healthy anymore, and now Puka is the number 1 receiver for the Rams. Like, it's that simple.
But you got him at 42 here, Fitzy. I know you're looking over the long term more, but we're season and a half removed from this guy being number 1 in the world, and it wasn't really close. So you think maybe you got him? He's not even a wide receiver 3 for you, Fitzy. Come on, you got to get him in a wide receiver 3 at least.
Boggs, I've got him in the FantasyPros Invitational Dynasty League, which you play in. So shoot me an offer, and he could be yours for a low price.
We're doing it. So I expect on the next show, I'm probably going to be rostering Cooper Kupp in that league for sure. Let's go down to the D tier, and we start at 30 with Amari Cooper. We work our way all the way down to 42 to Jahan Dotson. Lots of talent in between these guys. This seems to be a bit of a glob here, Fitzy. There's not a lot of dissenting opinions because I'm looking for like high ranks, low ranks on these guys. There's not a ton of difference between these guys. Is there one that stands out to you where you're either surprised there's not more variance, or maybe George Pickens has a little variance because Debro's got him down at 41. Erickson has him at 36. You and I both have him in the 20s, 29 for me and 26 for you. Is there anybody else that you see maybe deserves a little more variance, or is this kind of where it gets to, okay, take someone out of this group and they're all the same, so wait and take the low guy?
Yeah, I'm really surprised that I'm the low man on Pickens here, Boggs, because as you know, I've been a complete win.
No. Debro is by a lot. Actually, you're high guy on Pickens. You're 26.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, lowest number. Sorry, my bad. High man, wide receiver 26. Yeah. I have the highest ranking, the best ranking for Pickens, and I'm really shocked by that because I have been a complete win sock on George Pickens, and I'm horrified that he has not been able to consistently draw targets with Deontay Johnson on the field. When Deontay Johnson was hurt this past year, we saw Pickens' target share spike a little bit. My hope is that if the Steelers get a better quarterback, we are going to see George Pickens' talents leveraged to the full. And even if he's not an elite separator, he is basically a Mike Evans in training. I mean, we how many acrobatic catches does this dude have to make to make our eyes pop out? And, was it like Was it the Bengals who he just destroyed like late in the season where he had that 4 catches for 190 yards or whatever it was and 3 touchdowns?
And that's his boomer or bust. Like he did it against the Raiders too. It was like 173 yards and 71 came on a big play. He had a big play against the Ravens. You know what I mean? Like,
and that was right after he got the criticism for like not blocking. Like that was his big, middle finger to everyone who had criticized him for that. And
well, I think it's fair to be enamored with him and also criticize him for not.
Sure. No, of
blocking.
course. He deserved the criticism for that. Yes.
Yeah, that's me.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the talent is immense.
Yeah, there's he is a great player, but I mean, for me, I'm a little bit lower on him, even though I have been accused of being a homer and also probably am a homer. But I don't know what the quarterback is going to be in Pittsburgh. And it's probably going to be Kenny Pickett. That's who it's probably going to be, because he's a Pitt guy too. So a lot of the locals want him to stay. And was he given a real fair shake? I don't think he's very good. I did not want him. You know that, Fitzy. I was more on Malik Willis than I was on Pickett. But I don't know if he's had a fair shake, having to suffer through Matt Canada and a terrible offensive line for the last 2 seasons. So he's going to get at least another look, which makes me hate Pickett for this year. And I don't know if Pickett is good enough. Do they give him another year? Do they pick up his extension? Do they decide they want to roll with him? That's Tomlin's guy. He's a little bit married to him. So I don't really like it. I think you could say the writing's on the wall, though, because they started Mason Rudolph in the playoff game.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a big, ugly mess. We have no idea who the OC is there in Pittsburgh yet. So there's just a lot going around here. I will say, look, on the opposite side, all 4 of us are at or above consensus on Christian Watson. And look, Christian Watson, CCR is 38. Erickson has him at 38. I'm at 33. Fitzy has him at 31. Debro has him at 29. We all know the talent is there, but this once again is about staying on the field, which is why I have him by Tank Dell, because I'm not sure Tank Dell is going to stay on the field either, and Watson hasn't. So you're our resident Packer fan, Fitzy. Tell me about Watson. Do we think he can take a next step? Because I don't think it's a 1-tier jump if he does play all the games. I think it's probably a 2-tier jump for Christian Watson.
We are betting on the exotic skill sets, Boggs, the ridiculous combination of size and speed. And we saw some of the playmaking potential when he had, 8 touchdowns over a 5-game stretch in his rookie year. I'm not sure if I'm exactly accurate with that number, but it was like a lot of touchdowns in a short period. Now there's a lot of target competition for him. And this hamstring thing, I'm not sure. I've not verified this yet, Boggs, but a friend of mine mentioned that they're sending him to the University of Wisconsin to have them look at his, I don't know, to do some medical testing to see if they can figure out why he keeps having these issues.
Be the $6 million man. We can rebuild him. And
it was funny. I think the Packers just fired their strength and conditioning coach, and someone had to pay the price for Watson's hamstrings, and it wasn't going to be GM Brian Gutekunst. So,
not after his last draft class. No way.
Right. So, it's a bit of a leap of faith to have Christian Watson ranked in the low 30s, but the physical tools are so special. I think you have to maintain some optimism there, because if everything comes together, he could be a difference maker.
By the way, last season in 14 games, it was 7 receiving and 2 rushing touchdowns. This year, only got 9 games, but he still had 5 receiving touchdowns. Didn't run one in this year. But, or wait a minute. No, he didn't. I'm sorry. Just a couple rushing attempts. We are all below consensus on Marquise Brown and Jahan Dotson. Now, look, I think we can throw away Marquise Brown, right? He's older. He just never panned out. I thought, okay, maybe get him out of Baltimore, get him in this offensive system with Cliff Kingsbury where they throw the ball a ton. Maybe this is going to work. He's okay. He wasn't as good as I thought he was going to be. I should have been lower on him just because he's from Oklahoma, but would have made me low on CeeDee Lamb. So I'm trying to be unbiased. But Jahan Dotson, are we throwing away Jahan Dotson a little bit too early here? His ECR is 42. We're all below that. We're not crazy below that. 45 for me and Erickson, 44 for Fitz and Debro. Are we throwing away Jahan Dotson a little too soon? Because even when he got on the field, Curtis Samuel absolutely outplayed him this year. It wasn't really close. We know Terry McLaurin is number one. We have no idea who the quarterback is going to be here in Washington moving forward. So your thoughts on Dotson?
Yeah. At one point in the season, Boggs, Sam Howell led the league in pass attempts. And yet Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson were underachieving. And it seemed like Howell felt more comfortable throwing to the middle of the field. And maybe that was part of it. But at the same time, like, I think we're totally sold on what Terry McLaurin is as a player, whereas we have only gotten flashes from Jahan Dotson. And that's why I think he ranks a little lower. I still think he could become, I don't know if he's going to become a star, but I think he could become like a fantasy wide receiver 2. So there's still some optimism there. I really liked him coming out of Penn State. No real optimism for me with Marquise Brown. He's been in the league 5 years, and he's had one 1,000-yard season, Boggs, and only just barely 1,008 yards in 2021. He's averaged 6.5 yards per target over the last 3 years. That's not a very impressive number. So, I think he's been like the most overrated player in fantasy football for like 3 years running now.
Yeah, he is. He's tough. I mean, Washington should have a new quarterback, right? Put Drake May in there.
Yes.
Put Jaden Daniels in there. Maybe we're singing a different tune this time in 2025. But it is right now, you just have to go with what you've seen, and we have not seen a lot from Jahan Dotson. I completely agree with you, Fitzy. Let's go on down to the F tier here. 43 all the way down to 55. Jameson Williams starts it. Michael Wilson ends it here. Fitzy, I just cannot quit Jameson Williams, and I'm still high man here between all of us. I have him at 37, which, look, that is purposeful, right? I was not going to put him in a 12-man. You cannot be one of your top 3 wide receivers because, as we stated at the beginning of this episode, wide receivers is an arms race anymore. You have to keep pace with the rest of your league because there are so many good wide receivers. So I can't sit here as an analyst and tell you Jameson Williams should be in your top 3 wideouts. But I will say he's still my very first risk after all of my 36 wide receivers are off the board. And he won't be. After the rookie class comes in, he'll be closer to 41, 45, somewhere in that range for me. So it won't be the first risk I'll take at wide receiver because there's so much talent coming in, but he is still a worthy investment. In my opinion, I think the further he gets away from this major knee injury that he suffered right before coming in the NFL, the better he's looked. With Sam Laporta a little gimpy, he has stepped up and made some plays. I know Dan Campbell loves him, and he's an effort guy. You can see him downfield blocking. That is going to earn him more plays. Now, look, he's going to be the 4th option on offense, which is another reason why I can't have him in there as a top 3 wide receiver, because Amon-Ra is 1, Gibbs is 2, Laporta is 3. So Jameson has to be 4 as long as everybody's healthy. Montgomery is probably ahead of him in pecking order still, even though I do think it will shift more towards Gibbs and less to Montgomery this season just because Gibbs is so good. But I can't give up on Jameson. Is there anyone in this tier that you look at and you say, man, I'm taking the risk on this guy probably in every league I'm drafting this year because of X, Y, or Z? Is there a dude in this tier that you really, really like, Fitzy?
Boy, the guys I'm maybe clinging to, but by the way, you summed up Jameson Williams really well, like even with the downfield block. I forget which game it was where I saw him race downfield to like throw a block where I'm like, because it's really been a slow boil with Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
But like you can see the flashes. I think it's eventually going to be pretty good with him, even if it's never like, at least not in the short term, never a huge target share. There's just so much playmaking potential. The guys I have in the 40s who I am not ready to give up on yet are Quentin Johnston and Elijah Moore. And maybe I should be closer to giving up on Elijah Moore, but Boggs, I've got him ranked wide receiver 46, and you're right behind me at wide receiver 47. Like, they're just...
Harrison's 46 too. He's same with you.
Yeah, and there are just enough moments you get from him where, like, he runs a really crisp route and gets, like, 4 yards of separation, or makes a nice contested catch, or, you know, does something after the catch. Like, I don't want to cling to that 5 or 6 week stretch he had in his rookie season where somehow he was the wide receiver 4 over that stretch, despite like having Mike White and Josh Johnson as his quarterback with the Jets during that run. But like, he has not had ideal quarterback situations. Like, we've still seen Deshaun Watson struggle as a passer really since coming back from his suspension. Like, I just think there's still untapped potential with Elijah Moore. Maybe at this time of year from now, I've got him ranked wide receiver 88, and I'm totally giving up on him and waving the white flag, but not yet. And Quentin Johnston, Boggs, how dismayed were you by the rookie season? Are you one foot out the door?
I am. And I'm really surprised too, because for me, it's the drops, and I don't usually care about drops. And I think you guys have heard me talk about this before. If you've listened before, like Deontay had a ton of drops, which actually didn't have a ton of drops this year. He had big drops, but they weren't as plentiful as they had been in the past. But drops, I don't care about unless they take you off the field, but they did for Quentin Johnston, right? I mean, Josh Palmer flat out outplayed him. And I know we'll talk about some guys that we're done with, and you're done with a guy on that team, as am I. I wasn't brave enough to put him where you are, but I will be. You set the example for me, Fitz. I'm going to lower him too. And Mike Williams is who I'm talking about here. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I think I don't think I'm going to give up on Johnston either. One bad year does not a career make, of course, But I do. I mean, I'm second highest between us, but I'm still 10 spots below you. So he's still a wide receiver 5 for me, because I am not the biggest Quentin Johnston fan.
Yeah, Boggs, I hate Jim Harbaugh, but I'll hate him a little bit less if he can like repair Quentin Johnston.
Yes.
It's the exotic skill set. And like, Matt Waldman warned us on this show last year about the hands problems with Quentin Johnston. Like, we knew that was going to be an issue, but there's so much else. And, he was a very impactful college player. And like, maybe
it's not something, like I said, it's not something I usually care about, but when it does cost you playing time, you have to take notice of it. And the guy gets open, big drops, wide open, no one around him. The separation was there on some of those. Oh, he's so frustrating, Fitzy. He's just so frustrating to watch. Couple of guys that we're done with. You are done with Mike Williams. I am done with Jerry Jeudy. I think I'm done with Gabe Davis, especially depending on where he lands. That's going to be big because he is a free agent, and I don't think he's going back to Buffalo. And Michael Wilson. Look, I know Michael Wilson had a couple nice games for the Cardinals, but he had this injury history that crept up this year in college. I'm just not going to be rostering an injured player. So I'm done with Jerry. Jerry Jeudy's not coming around to me. When you get outplayed by Cortland Sutton, who was good, but he was noticeably slower to me. He still scored all the touchdowns, but that's where most of his production came from. I love Cortland Sutton, but he just looked like he took a little bit of a step back last year, and he outplayed Jerry Jeudy by leaps and bounds. Marvin Mims was not given enough playing time. I think he's going to be huge, and I think this team is rough at quarterback. I mean, obviously Russell's gone. What's going to happen with is Rippon going to start games for them? Are they going to go get a veteran? I don't know what's happening in Denver at the QB spot either. So I am just flat out on Jerry Jeudy, Michael Wilson, and Gabriel Davis. You are flat out on Mike Williams. You're just done. You can't stand the injury stuff anymore, right, Fitz?
Well, the thing is, Boggs, like in best ball and redraft leagues, I'm not totally out on Mike Williams. I'm probably more in line with ECR, but he's 29, and it's 50-50 whether he's going to have some major injury that like dramatically shortens his season. I'm willing to bet like on a 1-year proposition in redraft or best ball. I'm a little more willing to make that bet. Longer term, you've got a guy who's already getting close to the age cliff and has this alarming injury history and a lot of target competition. And what if the Chargers, what if some of the mock drafts are right, Boggs, and they draft Brock Bowers? Then there's another big target coming in to, because as it is, like Mike Williams is streaky. If it's Dynasty Best Ball, I'd rank Mike Williams 10 spots higher. But if you actually have to put him in your lineup, the guy is just so hit or miss. Like there's
He's
just
general soreness to me. I can't do it. I'll take injury risks, but I'm not going to take many, and he's not going to be one.
Fair.
What about guys that you like here in this section? Because I talked about Jameson, but you're high man on your boy Romeo Doubs by 11 spots versus the rest of us here. So is this homerism, Fitzy? Because you're the only one in the 40s. I got him at 59, Debro 56, Erickson at 66. You're the only one that has him as a wide receiver 4. So tell us it's not homerism and why.
Boggs, who was making plays for the Green Bay Packers in the receiving game in their little 2-game playoff run where they upset the number 2 seed and almost knocked off the number 1 seed? It was Romeo Doubs.
I mean, Dobbs had some great games. He really did.
And like, I know it's going to be an ensemble production from Green Bay. Like Jaden Reed is really good. Christian Watson is really talented. Romeo Doubs is underrated. And now they've also
Wicks was good. Musgrave was good.
Melton.
Bo Melton was good.
Melton was a find for them, Boggs. It was crazy.
How good was this draft class? These last 2 classes, my God. I know you guys have been upset about some of these picks that Green Bay has been making, and not a lot of people were excited about Lucas Van Ness, but those secondary picks hit for Green Bay this year.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is, Boggs, like I love this wide receiver draft class, and like Green Bay has zero reason to draft a wide receiver. Exactly.
Yeah, don't need any. Maybe some trades can be made or something. Maybe somebody wants to take a risk on Watson, but I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, I understand Dobbs is good, but I'm with you. I do think it's a little hit or miss. Is there anyone not in any of these tiers in the ECR top 55 that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. Let's get to the rookie class because that's what I've been waiting to dig into, Boggs.
I'll just throw out a couple guys I think that belonged in here that we didn't, and then I want to talk about the rookies a lot too. But I think Demario Douglas had a lot of great this year, and that's with some bad quarterback play and some bad offense in New England. So if things get better there, and he's the number 1, I mean, Kayshon Boutte just got arrested today, they need help. Juju is old. I was big on Juju for a big part of the offseason as well. But as soon as, like, in early August, when they started saying his knee still wasn't right, I was out. And unfortunately, he's still going to be stuck in New England, or New England's going to be stuck with him more likely because of the contract that he just signed. But I think Demario might be their number 1. And we talked about the Chargers, guys. Like, they're not reaching for a wide receiver here. Keenan Allen's your number 1. I think Palmer is very solid as a 2 there still. So just a couple guys I want to mention I think maybe should have been in here. I mean, I have these guys leaps and bounds out of Michael Wilson, who I think is super talented but cannot stay on the field. So let's get to the rookie class here, Fitzy, because it is unbelievably deep. As you mentioned, Marvin Harrison, you would put in the tippy top tier right now. Malik Neighbors is the consensus number 2. He is an absolute stud out of LSU. Roma Dunze, if you guys watch Washington at all, was a great part of their run. We already talked about Keon Coleman a little bit, bigger of a prospect. There's 2 guys from Texas, and Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. Troy Franklin from Oregon is a big prospect. Brian Thomas has been mocked in the first round. Tez Walker out of North Carolina is going to be a very high pick as well. I mean, look, I could sit here and list you guys players probably for another 2 or 3 more minutes that are going to be amazing NFL players. But this class is so deep. I didn't even mention like Ricky Pearsall and guys like that that are lower on down the totem pole of this class. This class is deep, and running back is thin. You're going to have a lot of wide receivers go in your rookie drafts. A lot of wide receivers go early.
Yeah, and Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't even the only son of a star caliber wide receiver. We've got Jerry Rice's son, Brendan Rice from USC, who's like not even in the top 12, but maybe in the top 15, top 20.
And he was good too. Like he's not his dad, but he is a very solid player. Yeah, so he'll make some noise too.
Wouldn't shock me if he was like a 3rd round pick. And that's the thing, Boggs. I think there are probably 6 or 7 wide receivers who go in the 1st round this year. It's that good a class. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see about 15 or 16 off the board in the first 2 days. Would that shock you at all?
No,
like it's that good a class. I mean, man, we could talk about these guys we were just kind of debating the Texas guys. I think you're a little more on Mitchell and I'm a little more on the Worthy side.
I think and I'll say this here too, so everyone knows Worthy has more upside, but I think ready to go right now. I think Adonai Mitchell is the guy, but I mean, so many good spots, and there's not a ton of spots that are super desperate for wide receivers, right? Like New England 100% is one of the teams that is absolutely desperate. Cincinnati actually is going to need some wide receivers because Higgins and Boyd are free agents. The Colts have Pittman as a free agent. Tennessee has, Hopkins and Burks. Burks hasn't really worked out. Hopkins is old, and the Giants still need some help. Chicago could use someone next to DJ Moore. There's no one in Atlanta outside of London. So I get, the more I talk about it, the more there are some needs for wide receivers, which should make these guys starters in a lot of spots. But it's an arms race in the NFL too, man, like your fantasy league. You got to keep up.
Yeah. And Arizona, I think, is another good landing spot for someone like it. And boy, if Marvin Harrison Jr. falls into their laps at number 4, because we see quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, which I think is probably going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Carolina could use more help, I think, at wide receiver. I mean, they don't want Adam Thielen carrying their wide receiver core again. And I don't know if they see Jonathan Mingo as some sort of alpha receiver. So, yeah, there are a lot of good landing spots. And, if you're rooting for a team that needs a wide receiver this year, yeah, there's a lot. Boggs, do you have any favorite sleepers in this wide receiver class? Like anyone who's sort of under the radar?
Ricky Pearsall from Florida is definitely one of my guys here. Ladd McConkey, I think. I don't really know that he's a secret though, right?
No, I know PFF and their big board has Ladd McConkey as like a top 50 player.
Yeah, I think he was great. Watching Jalen Polk rip apart my Longhorn secondary was not fun. So
Washington has 3 receivers. I mean, yes. Polk was only on the field as much as he was because Jalen McMillan got hurt, and Jalen McMillan is really good too. Like they have 3 fantastic receivers.
You know who else was underrated? Roman Wilson out of Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah, because they just didn't pass the ball that much. You saw it in the Natty, right? They run. That's Jim Harbaugh. So expect him to go to the Chargers, by the way. Wouldn't be shocked there.
Can I give you one more, Boggs?
Yeah, please.
A guy I really like. So we've got a lot of the last couple draft classes have been big on slot receivers, and these this class is full of like these big, rangy, downfield dudes. But there is one guy who I think has more like the Debo, Rashee Rice skill set, where it's like get him the ball in space and let him do his thing. Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky. Like
Corley,
he is a favorite of mine, and I've actually seen him like in some of the deeper mocks where people mock out the first 3 rounds. Like I've seen him go on day 2 in some of those, and that wouldn't surprise me a bit. Like he's fun with the ball in his hands, and he is hard to tackle. He's built like a running back.
Xavier Legette from South Carolina, another guy haven't even mentioned here.
Boggs, he's going to be polarizing because he's old and he is like a late bloomer, didn't do anything until the end of his college career, but he put up crazy numbers and he's like, 6'3", 227? Like he is a specimen.
And he just looks so much like Debo with the ball in his hands too.
Yep.
Down to the South Carolina helmet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just a lot of fun to watch. There are so many good wide receivers. We're going to see the combine is going to separate these guys, and not because guys need to be separators, but because there is a big glob of just tons of talent here. So like you said, that third round could be littered with wide receivers. And if they don't get picked in the third, the fourth will be littered with wide receivers. So there's going to be a ton of talent coming in the league. Yep. There's already a lot of talent at this position as well, which makes it difficult to rank a little bit. But I think we did it, Fitzy. That is everything for us today. So we will have Wormley back next week. He will not be skiing up in the mountains like from a 1990s comedy movie here, but he will be back with us to talk some more football. Hopefully for him, I mean, I'll be rooting against them, but hopefully for him, his Ravens will be on their way to the Super Bowl and we can see a very smiley, happy Ryan Wormley, but that is yet to be seen. But remember, you can follow us on the Twitter at Bogman Sports, for myself at Fitz_FF, and we will see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.